roads, you're in fact, the movement of traffic has potential to be impacted by a lot of ins and outs. So the in-depth allows you to get onto your road and then come in one entranceway to the, I'll call it more of a county road than a local road, although it might not be that. But in some instances, our hamlets are on highways or they're on county roads that we're supposed to be moving traffic more. So the idea of in-depth development does facilitate better movement of traffic. The linear does hold that back.
Hang on, Mayor Luke.
I'm not going to support the motion. I guess maybe take the word strongly out. And you discourage something, you discourage it. So I find the word strongly maybe not to my liking. But, Mr. Chair, certainly around this county of, 40-some hamlets, I can't remember. Certainly, 42? Thank you. Certainly they come in all sizes and shapes and forms. There's no question. Many of them have what I call that hamlet feeling, back roads off the main roads that give you more of a sense of a community. And now you can think of one where one end of the so-called hamlet, when you drive down the road, it's like 40 single families in a row on the east side, and there's 40 single families on the other side. It doesn't strike me as a hamlet at all. And it probably is a hamlet, but it doesn't, to me, appear to be hamlet living. So I'm not going to support it for that reason. But I'd support taking the word strongly out. And if we want to discourage them, then let's discourage them. Thank you.
Councillor Height, and then Brunton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. More of a comment than anything. I'm thinking of the hamlets in the west. Maybe planning doesn't get out there as often as they should, because I look at St. Williams, and it's been a growing hamlet, if that's what you're going to call it, and it's based on a T. It's all linear development. There's one side road over there, Dancy Side Road and Front Road. There's not really much for side roads, and if you were going to put back roads in there, you're directly taking out farmland. All the areas around me, Frogmore, Houghton Center, Cultus, you can build side roads. You're taking out more farmland. So I can't even fathom the idea that you're taking out less, because you're not only building the same size lots you build on the linear development, you're building 66-foot roads with 18-foot boulevards apparently now. But you use way more land. And if you're going to discourage it, how do you get infill? There's lots of gaps in our hamlets, and that's one of our problems here in Norfolk County. We have so many lots, nobody's selling them. You can't keep a house in my area over 2 weeks, it's not sold. Nobody's selling the lots for development. Maybe it's our development fees that are holding them back, but why don't you want that infill? And honestly, if you think traffic's a problem in Frogmore for having an extra laneway, really? You might want to get out there more often, because there aren't too many cars, and we don't exactly have to deal with rush hour traffic that you might have on Highway 3. That is for sure. You could add a McDonald's out there and you wouldn't have nearly the traffic problem you have here in this town. So I still think linear is the way to go. That's how we've built this county for years and years and years. It's how these hamlets were built, and there's a reason behind it. I don't think we're losing the feel. I think it's just not good planning to take out more farmland, increase the costs, and just change the concept of our hamlets. Thank you.
Councillor Brunton, then Councillor Black.
Just very quickly, Mr. Chairman. I guess reading the clause in there again, it doesn't say they can't do it. It just says you want to discourage it. Am I reading it that way? Like, due to circumstances, they may have to do linear. And that may be a case of where the land they own is restricted in terms of putting in internal roads or cul-de-sacs. Is that safe to say?
Through the chair, there's certainly a variety of hamlets, as Councillor Height has certainly indicated to us, and I was indicating there's other ones too that are on busier roads, but there are quieter ones. So we have a real big range, and each one is very unique. Yeah. Some of them are linear, some of them have in-depth. So we have designations around them that you can build within. And what this policy is encouraging is that there be some in-depth development.
So what you're saying is due to circumstances, they may have to do linear. Is that safe to say?
Through the chair, yes, that would be safe to say, yes.
Thank you.
Counselor Black.
Chairman, to staff, wouldn't really, isn't this kind of a moot point? A moot discussion in that all the hamlets are designated already. We're not expanding the hamlets linearly or interiorly. So they're already constrained by the fact that the boundaries are designated. Is that right or wrong?
That would be correct through the chair.
Okay, and then secondly, we do have hamlets that have had interior development. Wycombe, you've got a small little subdivision there contained within the hamlet. Lindock, it's another one where you have some, and I'm sure, you know, those two just pop into my head immediately, but I'm sure there's some other ones where within that designated area there are opportunities. And those developments have put the roads in themselves, and there's some nice homes in there. So is that right or wrong?
Through the chair, yes, that would be correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. You've heard the motion that we take out the county shall strongly discourage linear development along roads. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. Those opposed? 1, 2, 3. It carries. He didn't vote. No vote? No vote. So it becomes a tie, correct? It's a no vote, so it's a
Are the donuts here yet? No.
Actually,
Miss-
we're going to quit as soon as we get this because the lunch is here. So.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I tell you what, I asked my question of the planners, and it's not a case of where we can't do it. We possibly can do it, linear development. So I'm sitting there and we're trying to vote one way or the other to take, I don't know,
Well, it's a negative vote, so it's a tie, and it's lost. So we shall have lunch. What? Oh, thought you were talking to me. Oh, how long? Let's come back at 1:45. That should give them enough time. Come back at 1:45, please.
No, Mr. Chair, nothing.
Sorry,
Mr. Chairman,
should go on automatically, sorry.
I wanted to go back to page 82, actually.
82, go ahead.
Right, and it's about hamlet areas in it. And I'm thinking about the new Lindbergh Brewery, for example. It basically says, commercial and industrial uses within the hamlet designation shall be of a dry nature, not requiring excessive amounts of water for their operations. And I know the new Lindbergh Brewery is being quite a destination. They're doing a terrific job out there, and they're looking to expand that operation. And how will that, like, if we incorporate this statement in here, I take it are the planners going to recommend against expansion of that, what was an empty school for a long time?
Mary?
Through the chair, it is a concern because it's all on private wells and private water. Yes, there are a couple of hamlets that are not, like St. William's is on Port Rowan water, but for the most part, hamlets are on private water and sewage treatment systems. So that's why the policy is there, the dry nature. When it comes to an example like the one you've cited, I know when we did the zoning bylaw, we asked questions of the owner about the amount of water and the system's capabilities there on that site. So I would think that, again, if there should be a proposal to expand it come forward, we'll ask for further information to ensure there is enough water and enough room for appropriate sewage disposal system on the site.
Well, having lived just down the road from there, I know the water is about 14 feet deep. And a lot of times you see, for irrigation purposes, a farmer will manifold eight points together to get quantity of water and irrigate directly right out of the points without going in the pond. So there's adequate water there. And I know Councillor Oliver's just down the road south of there. So I would hope that that doesn't impede or impact this economic development opportunity.
Okay. Anything further, Councillor Columbus? Okay, site-specific policies, any questions? Moving on to Fernley Hamlet Area Site-Specific Policy. Okay, moving on to resort residential designations. Moving on, land use policies. Anything there? Urban residential designations. Permitted uses on page 87. Land use policies, 88, page 88. Page 90, site-specific policies. And next is Port Dover Mill Street specific policy area. And there's a bunch of these. I'm not going to read all of them unless there's something you want to ask about on page 91. Moving on, Simcoe mixed uses and warehousing site-specific policy area. Simcoe North Street South site-specific policy area. Simcoe Norview residential area site-specific area. Port Dover Health Clinic site-specific area. Simcoe office site-specific area. Nothing further. Port Dover, Dover Coast residential site-specific policy, OMB decision 2638 OP 2006, amendment number 1. Moving on. Permitted uses on page 94. I'm assuming that has something to do with central business districts or downtowns. Land use policies, page 95. Site-specific on page 97. Delhi residential use site-specific areas. Mike?
Yes, I'm looking at the bottom of page 97, Delhi mixed unit residential uses. Could you Could planners clarify for us what that means? A maximum of 8 residential dwelling units shall be permitted on the ground floor in the downtown, and a maximum of 4 in the basement. Can you clarify what the meaning of that statement is?
Through the chair, that's a very specific amendment that has been done, and we'd have to check to see where that is located and what the situation is. I don't remember that one. I'm not sure if Pam does, but I don't remember that specifically.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Shopping center commercial designations. Permitted uses. Land use policies. 101 site-specific policies. I'm going to let you go. I'm not going to keep reading these. If there's some on page 2 you want to talk about, please let me know. Page 2, 103. 104 and 105, commercial designations. Permitted uses, once again, 107 page, land use policies. Page 108, anything there? Delhi commercial site specific. Page 109. Page 110, industrial designations. (111), 112, 113, 14, site-specific policies, 115.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt, especially when you're on a roll. I don't like to have you
What
stop.
page are you on?
Well, I guess I have a general question, and I think I do know the answer. So through you to Mary, certainly from time to time, this council talks about what inventory we have of serviced industrial land, because we are seeing growth in this county in that regard, at least I believe we are. I would think that what is here is good, but I would think that an increase in more industrial land for the future, that would basically be addressed under the zoning bylaw. Would that be a fair statement? This doesn't restrict us from at any time servicing and putting up some more for sale, shovel-ready industrial property.
Matt,
Mr.
go
Chair,
ahead.
the industrial land study that I prepared identified the industrial land available in the county and the industrial lands needed over the next 20 years. There's a lot of industrial land that is designated. There's sufficient supply for the next 20 years. However, the problem is most of it is not shovel-ready. So if you want to have more land available for sale, you will have to look at servicing additional lands.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, page 115, 116, 117, we talk about industrial, and I guess this talks about industries that are poorly situated and small or whatever, and the designate the land to other uses. Is that what we're talking about there on 4-13?
To you, Mr. Chair, the purpose of that designation is to identify those industrial areas that can be converted to other uses without requiring a municipal comprehensive review under the provincial policy statement. So they are the older industrial areas. Most of them are surrounded by residential areas. There are some that are in Simcoe that are subject to source water protection issues. So the idea is to put in place some policies that will allow their conversion if the owners wish to do so. It's trying to add a little bit more flexibility in the official plan for those types of properties.
So would there have to be some, how should I put it, redesignation if someone wanted to buy a property, let's say, with a building, they'd have to go through a whole process to make the change?
Yes, they still have to go through that process, but without this kind of policy, they wouldn't even be able to start that process because they would have a fairly significant study that they would have to undertake before they can even initiate that kind of process.
Okay, thank you. That's the end for me on page 18, 118, 119, 120, 121, 122, 123, 124, 125,